Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit Podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit hosts, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on the Virtual Summit Podcast. And wow, we are in for a treat today. On today's episode, we are going to be getting some incredible information from a legendary summit host and rock star, good friend of mine, Summer Bock. First off, Summer, I am so glad you're here with us. Thanks for taking the time out to rock out with us.
Well, I'm thrilled. Thanks for having me here. And, just thanks for providing this resource for everybody. I know it's tremendous.
Oh, it is tremendous. And what you're about to give is going to be even far more tremendous. We've got an expert here. Summer's got a lot of experience in the summit world. And I'm saying summer and summit. So let's make sure we're keeping those separate for everybody that listening in here. She's got a lot of experience, both from hosting summits, which we're going to focus on quite a bit in today's episode. But also, she is a sought after expert in the health space and speaks on hundreds of summits. Okay. So she has got some knowledge and wisdom here. Now, Summer, what I would love for you to do before we jump in to the details that we're going to be talking about, all these goodies we're going to be exploring today, I'd love for you to just let our summit host know a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm an herbalist, fermentationist, and gut rebuilding coach. And I help people who have taken antibiotics too many times figure out how to achieve the golden doodle, and it's not the dog. We do that through ferments and herbs. I specialize in making bitters and teaching people also how to use fermented foods as medicine. So it's not just, you should be drinking kombucha to get your probiotics or eating sauerkraut. There's many different kinds of functional ferments. And there's very specific usages depending on what the probiotic profile is for each of those ferments. So those are the kinds of things I teach to people.
We are both nerds, Summer. I am a nerd over in the summit world, and you are a nerd. And when I say nerd, you're extremely smart. Like that, some of those words I didn't even know what they were. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use all of this glorious intelligence of yours, and we're going to direct it down into some of the incredible success that you've had, both in your business and with summits, which in a way kind of go hand in hand. So what I'd love at this point is let us know about some of the summits. Like, what are the summits you've run? How many of you have you run? And how would you contribute those summits to the success that you're now experiencing in business?
I have run 3 summits. The first one was called Gut Rebuilding Experts. And then the second 2 was the Better Belly Project 1 and 2. And the first one that I did, at that point, probably had a measly little list of 1,200 people. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I ran the summit by reaching out to, people who I was totally intimidated by. People who had, I'd listened to their entire CD box set. This was a little while ago. And people who I was just so impressed by, like their work genuinely changed my life. My focus, as I said, it's gut health and fermentation. So I reached out to people in those fields, people who I knew had a story to share, had something that more people needed to hear about, more people needed to learn about. And that very first summit that I did, it blew me up. Like that was the very beginning of my business being truly successful online, because it got my name out. It got me associated with some people who I was, like I said, really impressed by, but who also had a huge following. And they had, a name for themselves in the online space. And that was key. For me, this was about really getting my foothold online, because I knew clearly that's where I wanted my business. I started my business teaching workshops at various grocery stores, teaching people how to ferment. And that's how I built my list, literally 1,200 people I had met in person. And so then wanting to move this more online, I was like, okay, I think a summit's the right answer. I'd seen a couple other people do it. And it was honestly the scariest thing ever. Reaching out, sending out these emails, getting rejections. And really most surprising was when people said yes. I mean, that was honestly, that felt crazier than when people said no. I didn't actually expect people to say yes. And I had some really cool people on there, and it was an awesome experience. I mean, it's when things took off for me. After that first summit, I had a decent sized list. I mean, it wasn't massive, but it was decent, and it allowed me to be able to take that next step in my online marketing and continue to grow what I had started.
Calling all Summit hosts. I want you to join me and my tribe of Summit All-Stars at our in-person conference called Summit Fest Live, where you'll walk away with implementable strategies to rock out your summit, increase your revenues, and make connections that will last a lifetime. Come join us in New Orleans and let the good times roll. Get more information at summitfestlive.com. I love that right there. And the starting in the grocery store, I mean, we've all got that kind of, I mean, we all start somewhere, right? And how powerful is that now, kind of like seeing where you're at and the empire you've been building. You brought up something that I would love to kind of just dig into a little bit, because we have a lot of our listeners right now are at that spot. Like, they are like, why would anybody ever speak on my summit? And they're nervous about reaching out to the speakers. What kind of maybe advice or any kind of tip you'd give them as they're getting ready to kind of overcome this challenge or this fear?
I think it's important that if you know someone who knows the person, doing an introduction through someone else can be very effective. If I just reach out to somebody I've never met, they're getting reach outs like that all the time. But if I ask one of my friends who might have a relationship with that person already, like if I was to say, hey, Mark, go introduce me to so-and-so. And then all of a sudden that email comes into their inbox from you, they like you, they're going to respond to you. Otherwise they're going to, feel pretty bad. So you have a better chance with an introduction, I think, in some cases. And then the other way is making sure that you've created a mission and that you're asking this person to be on board, the speaker to be on board with the mission. So you create a mission for your summit. What is the goal? And I've seen people more and more start to do this, but I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to create a mission, and I'm going to create some shared values that we have. Because I know that if I can speak to some shared values, there's no way they can say no to this. Because if they're saying no to this, they're saying no to that mission. And I think that was a really powerful way for me to get people to say yes, was like, get them on board with the mission. So my first email to people was just, hey, you know what? I'm doing this summit and I have a mission. Are you interested in being in this mission with me? Like, that was my first email. I didn't have details about the summit. I did not have dates. I didn't say, are you saying yes or no to my summit? Are you going to mail out for me? None of those questions. I think people try to send this email with all the information. But no, it's just like you would have any normal relationship interaction with somebody. Like, I'm not going to walk up to somebody on the street who I've never seen and be like, hey, can I come to your house tomorrow and walk your dog? Like, can I do that? I don't have a dog. I really want to walk your dog. Like, you wouldn't do that. You'd see them and you'd say hi, like, hey, how's it going? Your dog's really cute. You'd start with something normal so that people don't think you're a stalker. So I always say, just start with the mission, send out that first email. And if they say, yeah, like that's really cool, actually, then you can build from there and go back and forth and give them everything they need to know. At some point in time, you want to send an email with all the details in one email, but that's once they've gotten on board with you and they're interested in sharing that mission.
I agree with Summer. Don't be the stalker to your speakers. Don't go straight in for marriage. Start with the, hey, I am a normal person. But I want to actually keep digging into this, because this is a unique and I think a very powerful aspect that you've brought up here. So you talked about you've built a mission, created shared values. Can you give us an example of one of the ones you've done, and how did you come up with that? Like, did you already have a mission? Because some of our hosts are sitting there going, like, I don't know how to come up with a mission. I'm just doing whatever service it is that I'm providing. So kind of talk us through how you did that and maybe how they could do something similar.
I create a mission for each summit. So it's not the mission of my business. I just make one up right there on the spot. And I'm creating a mission that's compelling. I remember, I think one of them started with, I believe most people's digestive systems in this country are wrecked. That was like my first sentence. And then I would go on to say, I'm trying to provide resources for people in the area of, nutrition, herbalism, psychology, fermentation, all these areas, to help them get the resources they need to help tackle these issues. And then I will go into a very specific sentence about that speaker and say like, you know, your focus on, you know, creating a sustainable business around fermentation, I think is going to be very useful for these people so they can know what kind of ferments they can go out and buy, where to find them, and like how you did this. So I'll specifically make that last sentence about them and then say, are you, you know, is that something you would be interested in? Do you feel like our missions are aligned here?
That is so good. Please, everybody, tell me you're writing that down right now to use that. I want to start seeing that because honestly, and Summer, I think you can, we'll actually shift over into this because I think you can talk on this a little bit too, is I'm seeing a lot of really like, not just like disappointing email requests coming in for speakers, like horrendous. Like, I mean, I think it was episode 84. I did an entire podcast episode that said, hey, list grabber, stop exploiting your speaker because it's just disgusting, you know? And I think you get a lot of requests. So actually let's just dive into this. What are some of the things that you're seeing that are coming to you as you're being asked to speak on these summits that like our summit hosts need to hear? Not that any of them are doing, but like, what are you not, don't do these? Like, what are the kind of the trends you're seeing?
Yeah, I get requests daily to be on summits. And there's a new fad. I think there's a teacher out there that's telling people like, use a summit to build your list. And they really are creating summits just purely as a list build, not as a resource for people, not as a way to, you know, spotlight the speakers. They're just trying to build their own list. It's a very selfish ask. It's okay to be selfish. I'm not saying that's wrong, but you're just not likely going to get people saying yes, because as a speaker, as somebody who, for me now, has a decent sized list and a great business, I am not interested in just helping someone build their list unless there's something in it for me, because I'm selfish as well, right? So I want something out of it too, you know? And so what I have found is that people these days are creating summits and they're not using the option to have like recordings that you can buy. So the summit is up for a week with just all the recordings playing for a week, but then they never let the customers buy those recordings. So I have I want to be able to send out to my list and talk about this and then give my audience a chance to purchase those recordings for many reasons. One, so that if maybe they didn't get a chance to hear my live recording during that week because they were busy, maybe their kid was sick that day and they didn't have time to listen, I want them to be able to buy it, because then I have more people listening to my interview. So it benefits me if more people can actually purchase those, get them in their computer and listen to them later. And like I said, like listening to them over and over and over again, because it's key. I mean, I always listen to these things when I'm like taking a walk or I'm, walking a dog, my neighbor's dog. Like I said, that was a real example. But, I just can't say yes anymore to a summit request when somebody isn't creating a way for me to monetize it. But also I'm thinking about that from the customer experience. They're not allowing the customers to go back and listen to these recordings again.
Love that. If anybody knows who that summit coach is doing that, please shoot me an email and let me know, because I'd love to have a talk with that person. So moving forward with this summit, Summer, because we've been talking about, the aspect of the speakers, how they're reaching, or the hosts are reaching out to the speakers. We're talking about the success. I'd actually like to circle back to one of the things you've said, because you're dropping a lot of gems and golden nuggets here, and I just want to make sure we don't just blow right past them. You talked about building a summit as a resource versus building it to build a list. Can you talk about what you meant by that, building it as a resource, and how we could actually do that, how we should be doing that?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, many summit hosts are going after people with big lists. They're like, okay, I'm just going to go out to all the online marketers out there who have big lists, and I'm going to try to get them on my summit. And like, this is a whole, list grab. That's all this is. What I try to do is I actually, like I said, I have this mission. And so I think about this as an event, as a real event. And I look at where are the holes, like what are the topics that need to be discussed? How do we cover this whole mission in a way that represents what I stand for and helps drive home my message through other people's interviews? So as I'm doing that, I might find that, I think a good example for me is fermentation, right? So I have, we'll dig a little bit into this later too, I think, but I create tracks. So in my Better Belly project, I started using tracks. So I have like gut health basics, fermentation, wellness practitioners, gut brain axis. Various tracks allow the customers to be able to go through the summit and select which track are they most interested in, so they can see which interviews are underneath each track. And then they can prioritize their day better. Because, you are usually releasing, like I like to release at least 7 talks a day. I think that increases sales because no one's going to be able to sit there at their computer and listen to 7 full talks every day during a 7-day summit. But if you can create these tracks, you at least allow people to navigate, because you want them to show up for at least one a day. Like even if they show up for the free one, you want them there because you want to see what kind of quality you have, and you want them to really be engaging with the material. If you can get them to show up, they're way more likely to buy. And then they get a chance to hear your pitch at the end as well. But something that I really try to do with this is I'm not just looking for people who have giant lists. So like I said, fermentation is one of the tracks. There's not a massive amount of online marketers in the fermentation world that have these massive lists, right? Like I'm probably one of the very few. And so I will look for people who have written a book. They may not be that interested in creating this kind of business, but they've written a book. They have some sort of, standing in the community. I want them there. I am not going to be choosy about how big their list is in order to have them on my summit, because I'm more interested in quality content than I am on the size of their list. And that's about creating a resource for people. And what that can even do in the long run is you may even through your very summit create a boost for some of these people along the way. They maybe didn't have this big thing going on. And then all of a sudden your summit could actually blow them up and allow them to get some of the press that they need, that they deserve. They've been in it maybe a lot longer than you. I don't know. I just feel like we've got to be thinking about how to lift each other up as we do this. So it's like, I'm trying to lift up the speakers. Yes, I'm trying to lift up myself, but the way I lift up myself is by focusing on lifting up my speakers and lifting up my customers.
I mean, it's win-win-win, right? I think we were
Right.
saying, you said something and maybe I just misunderstood it. You said, even if they get, you have 7 talks a day, ideally 7 days, I think maybe you said,
Yep.
and you said, even if they get the free one. So are you dividing your talks up? Some are free and some are paid access only, or are they just all free during that time period?
What I meant was that they're all free during that time period. And so for 24 hours, those 7 talks will be free and available. And what I'm saying is it's really hard for somebody to get a chance to listen to all of them, in which case they would have to upgrade and purchase the recordings.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your virtual summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummits.com.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So I'd love to kind of shift over just a little bit into your success. You kind of talked slightly about the tracks, but I'd like to kind of just from a 30,000 viewpoint perspective, like how do you see, I mean, you've done summits, and in our pre-interview chat, you were talking like about how, you don't just follow the mold. You don't like just let other people do it for you. And you really like to have your hands in there and kind of controlling it to make sure that it turns out how they all have, very, very successful and powerful. Can you kind of talk to us about like how your summits are different than like the other summits that are out there, and how do you ensure that happens? Like, how are you taking part to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I have run all my summits in-house. So I hire all team members to run the summit. I hire a specific web developer to help me during that summit. They're usually not my regular web developer, because I found that when you're doing a summit, all your other projects are going to be put on hold. So I hire technically really a separate team just to run the summit, but they're people I'm hiring in-house. Like this is where I'm kind of probably crazy. I'm not always hiring people who've done this for other people over and over and over again. I know how I want it to go. And then I teach people what I want them to make for me. So I map the whole thing out. I really focus a lot on the website. I think very clearly about that user experience. So as the user goes in and they opt in, they give us their email to participate in the summit. I usually have 2 options for that. one option is just to come in and save your seat at the summit, and we'll send you reminders, and you can participate in the free interviews as they're being released during the live summit. And then I also usually create some sort of recipe book that's all contributed. All the contributors for those recipe books are speakers on the summit. And that's another alternate opt-in. We find that that's helpful because it just gives some of the summit speakers a better way to communicate to their list. Like, hey, do you want this Better Belly Recipes cookbook? Like, we're going to give you this, instead of saying, hey, do you just want to be, sign up for another summit? I know I've sent you a lot of these. So I try to think of something each year that's like creative. What's something I can do that's going to allow my speaker to send to their list in a creative way and still get people signing up to save their seat at the summit as well. So that's something I'm thinking about. And then once we go in there, I mentioned you have the tracks. I also created an option for people to upload all of the tracks, all of the interviews from one track to their Google Calendar or their Outlook or whatever. We have all those tech options. Or they can upload all the interviews for the entire summit to their calendar. Again, it's about engagement. You're trying to make sure that people have this in front of their face. They don't forget about it. I know a lot of people do SMS texting and things like that, but I know for myself as a customer, I always put myself in the customer's shoes, because I think about what my experience has been at other summits. If I'm getting a text message every hour or every 2 hours for 7 days about all these, this is going live and this is going live, I'm like, after about, 6 of those texts, I'm like, oh my God, I need to mute this text thread, because shut up. I would rather be able to pick the ones I'm most interested in. Text me just about the ones I'm interested in, So I always think about how to make it a little more tech savvy, and all of this stuff is doable. How to make this tech savvy so the user experience is better. And then I'm talking about the speakers being uplifted. Like I mentioned that earlier. It is my intention that all my speakers have this be a list build for them as well. I don't need to try to hold on to all of these people that are coming through the summit. Let's disseminate all this information. If somebody comes on and sees, like Andrea Nakayama, for example, spoke on mine. If they see her talk and they're like, oh my God, this is me. I love her. I want to hear everything about her. I want them to be able to click there underneath the recording. It's playing. Underneath the recording is a place for them to go check out Andrea's free gift, just as part of being in the summit for free. And they can go opt in on her list. And I've had some of my speakers come back and tell me, Summer, I will always do your summits. Anytime you ask me, because I've had the biggest list build from your summit above any other summit I've ever participated in. And I think that's important, because you have to think about, again, from a relationship standpoint, this isn't a one-time deal. Even if you do one summit, it's not a one-time interaction with that person. You want to create lifelong relationships with all the speakers, because you don't know how you're going to work together in 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So you want it to be beneficial for them. So I'm always highlighting what they're saying and making sure that their freebie is available. It's there, it's just standing out so that people can go check that out. And I'm not afraid that people are going to go over there and run away from the summit, because I gave them the resource. So I think they're going to come back to me and still want the resources that I'm providing. Something else that I do in the interviews themselves to really help with those relationships with the speakers is I record the bio, the intro, and the outro with the speaker live and present with me. And I know a lot of people record those separately because they're embarrassed to read the bio in front of somebody. They're embarrassed they might stumble their words, they might mess up. They're embarrassed about pitching at the end. And honestly, most people aren't pitching at the end of their summit interviews. You should never do a summit interview unless you're pitching your upgrade. You have to pitch that package that you're selling at the end of every single interview. You are literally leaving money on the table if you don't do that. And what I've found is that when I'm interviewing somebody and I start out and I read their bio and then I say, so-and-so, the reason I have you here is because I read your book 10 years ago and it totally changed my life. My mom gave it to me, and she gave it to me at this time when I was dealing with this health concern, and I went in here and I read this and I started doing what you said, and I made some major progress. And them hearing that and the audience hearing that, it creates this level of rapport that it's real. It's real, right? So I think having that moment, you don't want, imagine if you just start out that interview and you just ask people questions, and then you go and you record the interview. You go and record that intro separately, and you say that blip about that person and they never hear it. You totally missed an opportunity to connect with somebody who changed your life. Like, you want to tell them that. This is your chance to tell one of your heroes that they helped you. So I think doing that is really important. And then the upgrade is really scary. The first time I remember doing it, I was like sweating my guts out, just being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pitch in front of this, very successful person. And here I am, a peon, and I'm going to pitch and I'm going to say, everybody buy this. And I do this little pitch. It's very similar every time. I say, that was an awesome interview. I mean, I know that you're going to want to listen to this again and again, and you can. If you upgrade at betterbellyproject.com/upgrade, you can listen to this while you are commuting to work, while you're cleaning your house, or while you're getting your exercise. This is an interview that I'm going to definitely listen to again. And if you purchase this, you're going to get access to all the recordings and all of the purchase bonuses. And so-and-so has actually included a bonus. Hey, do you want to tell us so-and-so about the bonus that you've included for all the people who purchase this upgrade? And then I give them an opportunity to chime in and talk about that. And I don't surprise them with that. I've told them about that at the beginning, like, hey, we're going to talk about your bonus at the end. Be ready to just say a sentence or two. And sometimes that person will actually continue to pitch your upgrade. Like, it's really cool. And then you don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting at the end. So please don't. I've listened to so many summits where people are not pitching at the end. You're missing the whole point of doing that summit, which is to get more people engaged. Because guess what? Somebody buys those. They may even, you don't necessarily want people giving away stuff, but they might share that interview with their friend or their family member. And like, now you're disseminating information. And that is the entire goal here, is disseminate information, get more and more eyeballs, more and more ears listening to your voice, hearing what you have to say. And I also think that intro and that outro positions you as an expert. And your entire goal as the host of Summit is that you are the numero uno head honcho expert of this entire thing. And so you have to remember that. And there's a couple things, and I'm happy to share some more tips on how to position yourself as an expert throughout this, because I think there's some really cool things that I started doing after my first summit that I learned, and I started doing my second and third summit, and it made a massive difference for me.
So several things. One, I love that how you talked about how you're pitching it at the end, and then when the expert or the person you're interviewing, they're going to chime in. That's also social proof. So that increases conversions dramatically. I would love to, in the a little amount of time we have left, circle back into the tracks though and work through that, because I think that is that's a powerful and a useful thing that we can be doing, especially for anybody who's doing a multi-day summit, a larger, bigger summit. So when you create the tracks, how does that look? What does that mean? What is that? How does that happen from a user experience? I get that they can download it and be notified of that, but just kind of walk us through one track and what that means throughout a summit.
So what I do is usually I have 4 or 5 tracks, and the main thing is when you show up after you've opted in and you show up on that schedule page, the tracks are all listed at the top, and you can click on each of the tracks. And when you click on each track, it'll show you all the interviews that fall under that category. So that's one way to navigate the content. They're navigating, in my case, usually at least, generally 45 plus interviews. So it allows them to navigate it where maybe they only have 6 to 10 interviews that they now have to scroll through. So they're going to get less fatigue as they're reading through these blurbs and learning about people. And they're actually going to stay more engaged and probably read more than they would if it was just one big long list, because now they're interactive. They're clicking on each of these little tracks and going, oh, I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is. I make sure to get enough people in each track to where there can be at least one track being highlighted each day during the summit. So the fermentation track, every day of the summit, there's going to be at least one fermentation interview. Some days there might be 2 or 3. It depends on, certain topics will have more participants. And for me, I don't put people in multiple tracks. So it's not a tag. I put each interview only goes in one track. And that's, again, it's to keep it easy for the customer. It's such a simple way of doing it. I found that we have rave reviews about that. That's been one of the cool engagement pieces that we noticed also in the Facebook group. I do a public Facebook group and you can join it and, talk about the summit when it's live. And people kept talking about the tracks. Like, oh, I'm so excited about the fermentation track. They would be thrilled about this one thing because it niched down something that could be really complex. And, if you have a lot of experience, being interviewed for summits or listening to summits, purchasing summits, whatever, you'll know that there's just a lot of times there's just all these random interviews. I try to create a through line. I want some cohesion here. I want these to all be going. It's like the mission helps create that cohesion, but overall, I want there to be a story. And I always include a wellness practitioner track because some of the people want to talk way more nerdy. Some people just are nerdy like that. And, there's going to still be consumers showing up at that wellness practitioner track because they're going to be like, oh, I want to be in the know. Yeah, exactly. But, it's a really cool way to make sure that everybody is getting supported and they feel like there's high quality information there.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
Yeah, this is such good information. I love this actually, as far this idea and how to do it. We talk, the whole reason kind of the one-day summit that we've created has taken off is because it minimizes the amount of overwhelm and attention span. And when there's just so much going on, people say, I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it. And they just peace. Whereas you can provide all this information and still minimize overwhelm by doing what you're saying here, Summer, with the tracks. I love that.
Well, and one thing I would add to that, for someone who has a business with multiple avatars, that's a great way to divide up your tracks. So, I'm kind of thinking of it as really when I look at my tracks, what am I basing it off of? I'm basing it off of the various programs that I have. I have fermentation programs, I have gut health programs, I have a certification program for wellness practitioners. I'm kind of thinking about my various avatars as each of those tracks. And that helps for one of those avatars just go in and listen to just that one track and get their needs met.
That right there is a huge takeaway. So in the last minute or two that we have, I would like for you to give us, maybe one or two of those tips that you said that you use to position for expertise, because I think that is great information to put out there.
So what I do for my talks, it's your summit. You want to make sure that you're being featured somehow. You want to get a chance to speak. My first summit, I had somebody interview me, but I thought about it and it didn't quite sit right for me because I was like, it's weird. Why do I have somebody interview me? I'm the host. So for my future summits, I actually will just do a class. So my interview is not an interview at all. It's a class. And I usually do 2 or 3 different classes. And I think on my last one, I did one on gut cleansing. I did one on fermentation, one on gut health. I can't remember the exact titles right now. But when I taught each one, I just start and I'm like, all right, we're going to talk about the 3 mistakes that most people make when trying to heal their gut and what to do instead. And I just teach. Like, you're there, you have me, and now I'm going to stand out because I'm the only one that gets the floor to teach. So I teach these amazing talks. They walk away from that being like, oh my gosh, I'm still pitching them to buy the upgrade, but at this point, I'm seeding my programs. So we know that most customers, there's like a 90-day sales cycle. So there are customers that at 90 days, that's when they start buying. It's just this thing that happens. And so I just know if I can seed as much about my programs and build the trust and give that, let them know that I know what I'm talking about. I'm somebody that you can know, you can like, you can trust. I've got this information and I just teach. I should give them the information. Here's what's next, and I'm seeding my programs within that period, that sales cycle. We get a lot more purchases for my actual programs from those kinds of classes instead of interviews.
I love that. That is actually a really powerful takeaway right there. And why not? It's your summit. Just like you said, you should feature yourself. And I do like the idea. I mean, we've heard this in the past in some of the groups we're in, Summer, talk about interview, like you have somebody interview you. I still think that could be a good thing to do, but I like that stand out, like you're the keynote or you're holding the workshop, something like that. It really does kind of position you above all these other experts that you have on your summit too. So from expert leverage scenario, that's great. Wow. Like I wanted to I've let this go even longer because you've got so much information and I wish I could just keep going. But I know I want to respect your time as well. And I thank you so much for this information. And I know a lot of our summit hosts are right now like, I need more Summer. I need access to her. Mark, let me know how to get a hold of her. So if you would just let everybody know right now, kind of like where you hang out, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
At Fermentationist. It's just like it sounds, Fermentationist. That's Instagram. You can find me on YouTube as well. I do some YouTube tutorials. And also you can go to gutrebuilding.com. That's my main website. I'll throw one more out there because I know you guys are interested in business and, really thinking about this behind the scenes of what happens. And I just created a really cool funnel at gutsandglory.live. And it's a bitters funnel. You download a handbook. There's a free plus shipping in there. It's just cool. Like if you're interested in seeing a funnel that's working really well, I built that recently. I'm really proud of it and it's kicking booty. So definitely check that out if you're interested in seeing a little bit more of what happens behind the scenes. I would love to keep talking as well. I appreciate the time. And there's just, I think we just got to the tip of the iceberg on this one, but I really did give you some of my best pieces here. Like the things that I know stand out, made the biggest difference for us.
And they were amazing. I've got a page of notes over here written down. I know everybody at home is thrilled to have these as well. So make sure you check out that funnel. If you want to see how a powerful, highly performing funnel is working, go to the gutsandglory.live. We'll have all of that in the show notes as well. Summer, I'd love for you to kind of wrap us out here with like one final parting piece of wisdom.
The main thing I would say is trust your gut. Pun not intended, quite honestly. You have to trust your gut as a business person. There are people who are going to tell you, this is how it's supposed to go. This is what you're supposed to do. This is, here are the rules. There are no rules. I mean, everybody is trying different things all the time. And you have to do what's authentic for you. You have to do what makes sense for your brain. And if you can't wrap your mind around an idea that a consultant is telling you, if it just doesn't jive with you, it doesn't make sense, it's not going to work. Like it will fall flat because your customers will feel that. And I think that's why I personally take on these things and do it myself. I know most people don't have the time or energy or whatever to actually DIY their own summit experience. And that's fine, but you still want to make sure that this experience is in alignment with who you are as a business person and in alignment with your brand. So really trust your thinking, trust yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to be standing there looking at yourself in the mirror. And you want to feel good about that. And if someone else lets you down, that's hard. I would rather let myself down and be like angry at myself for a minute and know that I can do better next time and I have the ability to make it better and change. But if I'm mad at somebody else, a consultant whose advice I took that didn't work, that I never really jived with, I can't really, they have no investment in the experience. So they're not really there looking at me. We're not in the mirror together looking at each other and being like, man, that sucked. Let's do better next time. Right. So I always want to make sure that I'm doing right by myself, doing right by my customers and right by my speakers so I can keep learning how to make this better each and every time.
Such incredible parting wisdom. Thanks again so much, Summer. This has been absolutely great.
My pleasure. This was fun. I love it. Thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you, Summit hosts, for spending this time with Summer and I. I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, host here at the Virtual Summit Podcast. And just remember, your message matters. So go out there and make an impact in the world. Be sure to check out all the information we've just talked about and all these goodies over in the show notes at podcast.virtualsummits.com/102. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit Podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the Summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.